what we'll be discussing is what is also on the Standard this morning. All right? This one. What Ruto Raila proposals on law mean to the hustlers. It's on page 4. Ndu, you want to start there?
Okay, so some of the proposals: less travel by government officials.
Yes.
An increase in top executive offices, reduction in fuel prices, collapse of government institutions, increase of allocations to the counties, an audit of last year's presidential elections, whereas the report to the dialogue team has been received with heavy undertones. A peek inside shows elaborate plans to trim government spending and enhance funding to counties for development. Okay, now they want radical austerity measures to ease Kenya's burden. So some of the key recommendations would generally impact state operations, apart from creation of the office of the official opposition leader and 2 deputies. That could open a new spending front from the exchequer. A bulk of the recommendations are geared at tightening the purse. All right. The committee recommended reduced travel by government officials. I would like to know by how much. Expansion of the executive, reduction of fuel prices, collapse of government institutions, increase of allocation to the counties, and an audit of last year's presidential election. That seems to still be a major bone of contention. If the proposals are fully implemented, government officials with a penchant for travelling and taking allowances will be forced to reduce their travel budget by, there it goes, 50%.
Yes, yes.
The committee, co-chaired by National Assembly Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah and Wiper Leader Kalonzo Musyoka, wants the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to reduce the daily subsistence allowance per diem for public office officials by 30%. So now you're asking, how will all of this then affect the cost of living? I mean, this one looks like a no-brainer, isn't it? That if you see that the money that officials are using for travel reduces by 50%, the thought then is that you have a little bit more money left to do other things with. Other things
Like
that
what?
would be substantial.
Like buying nyanya for people. I don't get it.
Nyanya is three times more expensive. That is, according to this, that's what they say. Let's cut back spending. Because the thought of cutting back spending means that you have a little bit more to do something else with, Nispa. Let's continue. In tightening the belt on government expenditure, the committee recommended that all state and public officers travel in economy class for flights of not more than 4 hours. So all this business of you are going from here to Dar es Salaam and you're on first class, stop it. That you're going from here to Dubai, it's 4 hours and 30 minutes. You don't need to go on.
You're going from here
Ingia coach
to Joburg, it's 4 hours.
It is 4 hours.
Yes.
You don't need to go. You're going from here to Addis Ababa, it is 2 hours. You don't need to fly a first class. Fly coach like the rest of everybody. All right.
So who's going to do this now?
Who's going to fly coach? Government officials.
Which one?
That's a good question.
Does that article in any way, shape or form talk about the per diems that people are paid when they travel?
Yes, because they said now that they want to speak to the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to say that, people's allowances for public officials should be reduced by 30%. So if you are going with, 1,000 shillings, you will now be going with
700.
600 or 700.
Itakatwa.
That's a proposal.
That's a proposal that they want to now recommend it to the SRC.
But the question that do they also deal the question of why is it that we are reading that our public officials travel so much? Must they travel so much?
This is a good question. So
That's
now
why
they're
it's been
also
reduced
talking
by
about
50%.
reduction of travel by 50%. So if in a month you were taking 6 trips, you will now look at the one and say, which one is very important? You will now remove 3.
I assume that travel is important. That's where I'm coming from. And I'm saying, are we simply going to say reduce by 50%, or are we going to rationally look at why people need to travel? Because the why, if you answer the why, then you may find you don't need to travel at all. You would actually have a Zoom call.
This is true. And I think it is on that premise that this suggestion was made, that perhaps they thought there was some kind of frivolous activity when it came to travel, that anytime somebody says, there's a meeting in Canada, okay, how many of us are going? 21 people will jump up and start traveling everywhere. No. Is it necessary that you go? Oh, we needed to discuss. Can you discuss it? After all, COVID proved to us that presidents of nations can meet over important matters virtually. It happened.
And they did.
And they did. And there were resolutions
Business
that
was
were
done.
arrived. Yes. Resolutions were arrived at the end of those meetings. It's possible. it can be done. There are things that are absolutely necessary for you to do in person. That is true. But now this came obviously from the fact that they said, okay, you know what? There's a lot of travel and maybe it's not necessary for you to go with an entourage of 25 people. Can you reduce that number? Can you not go at all? Can you reduce the days that you will spend there? Do you have to tack on a week extra for shopping now that you're in the city of Istanbul, for example?
You know,
Things
the way
like
it's being
that.
presented, it's as though it isn't so much the work, it is the travel that is at the center of this discussion. Because people look for reasons to travel.
Yeah.
But the key activity is they want to travel.
They
And
do.
it's not just travel, they want to travel comfortably.
Yeah.
And they also want to consume a per diem.
Yes.
Yes, the per diem is also a very encouraging factor here for travel.
Yes.
So they've talked about the fact that in this committee report, which is expected to be presented to Parliament, recommends that the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, the National Gender and Equality Commission, and the Kenya National Human Rights, National Commission on Human Rights, be merged into one. All right.
Apana,
I can see the rights and the gender. I don't see the NCIC.
apana.
So let me just because. Their their mandates be undertaken by the Kenya National Human Rights and Equality Commission as established under Article 59 of the Constitution.
Kuna.
Akuna what city?
That.
What?
The crafters of this constitution understood the importance of this separation of powers, that you deal with specific issues. Then someone is coming along and saying, make this mashakura, so that it is just...
Rishi.
Yeah.
Actually, the Constitution created one commission for rights and gender and equality.
Yes.
And then they said Parliament could then review and see whether there's a way you can split this. Okay? Of course, that was said, the craft of the Constitution are looking for jobs for their cronies and saying, if you separate them, then two commissions,
More
then you
people
have
will get jobs.
two commissions, commissioners, CEOs, and everything else. Initially, it was one.
Under Article
Equality,
59.
gender and equality, human rights, gender and equality commission is one. If you remerge them, when's the last time you heard about this equality commission anyway?
Eric, it can be one, it can even be a half. The point I'm trying to make is, if you want to confuse and lose things, make this thing a monolith.
Start creating things.
So there are very many things inside it. So you're never really quite sure what it is and which is where. This one, you're clear, that's where you go for this, that's where you go for this, this is where you get this. That is the logic behind what we call specialization. Because someone could say, but once a doctor is trained, they can just treat you. Yes, they can. Why do you have specialties then? Why do you have subspecialties? It is that same logic that, in my mind, leads to this separation. That is mine. But separated, then brought together again. No.
They're not quite sure what's going to happen to the staff of these three commissions. That's the National Human Rights, the NCIC, and the NGEC. But they're saying that they would know this by the end of 1 year. And this is if Parliament
agrees
has
with
agreed to this.
These ideas.
Yes.
I don't agree with that idea.
There's several more recommendations that are under all of this.
For example,
very many. They've also recommended that the national and county governments adopt the zero-based budgeting approach in enhancing accountability, rapidly reduce wastage of public funds, and address the challenge of incremental budgeting. Okay. They've also said it is time to freeze the establishment of new state corporations. They recommended that the Ministry of Energy and Petroleum, in liaison with the National Treasury, reduce the road maintenance levy by 5 from 18 to 13 and the anti-adulteration levy from 18 to 15, thus reducing by 3 shillings. So that's another one. Reduce the cost of fuel.
Some of it are in a drop by 8 bob.
Yes, because now you've reduced the amounts that you charge on
But you're
levies.
going for the levy that maintains roads.
Yes.
And you're going
make
for
sure
the levy.
that your fuel is pure.
Yes.
What?
Surely. Meanwhile, there's this whole tax thing that you could have thought about. Perhaps we can reduce it here, but no.
No. That one is tax.
That's not this tax.
That is tax.
So now, when a road is not done, you will be told what? But
Look, if they really wanted to simplify this thing, why don't they merge Nairobi
with Machakos?
Yes, no, that one they can do, but Kenyatta International Conference Center with Nairobi National Park, so that it just becomes one thing. Only, come on. Did they have nothing else to do?
There may be more of these recommendations that we're getting.
They had a lot to do. It took them long.
It took them long.
To come to this?
Sleepless nights.
You
more.
have something that is working, then you muddle with it, and then you're telling us,
They were
put this
burning
here,
the
change this
midnight
here.
oil. They had koroboi. And
It would appear as though there is a bee in your bonnet, CT. There are many more recommendations here that would add yet another one. I don't know if you're ready.
No, I do not wish to hear any of these
City is just being
recommendations.
negative. It's just negativity. Dr. Duncan Ojwang is a member of the Kenya Kwanza Dialogue Committee technical team. He's in the studio. Jeremiah Kioni, who is the head of the legal and technical team of Azimio, is somewhere behind. He'll be joining us hopefully in good time. Dr. Ojwang, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Habari ya leo?
Salama, habari yenu?
Tuko poa.
CT is not too happy, but you know, the rest of us are all right.
So, Dr. Ojwang, you are a member of the technical team. Those were advising the Kenya Kwanza team on what is right, in terms of this national dialogue conversation, right? And you advise them to come up with this.
With what?
You
are
have
pointing
just
at
been
something?
reading.
This report that they released. Are you happy with the report?
Yeah, I'm happy with the report. It has exceeded my expectation. And so, of course,
You didn't have a bar anywhere, did you? You had not even raised the bar.
no, we did. I don't know whether what people expected, but at least we have a report.
Yes.
Bipartisan report for that.
Yes.
The issue that preoccupied our time and concerned our effort is cost of living. You can see several austerity measures.
Yes.
The issue of institutionalization of our politics.
Yes.
Because, you hear cheap things like, they have created a position for the leader of opposition. Now, the leader of opposition position is created so that rather than doing what they are doing very well in the street, it is institutionalized so that they can protect.
Go to the streets as an institution.
They can protect people in parliament and through structure and institutions. So how is that proposal not pro-people?
That proposal is BBI.
Why are you BBI by whatever name? I'm not hung up with acronyms because I think Kenya has a longer history than BBI. There was this discussion before BBI, but we don't just pigeonhole and say and use labels. Let us discuss the content.
Yes.
Is Raila and opposition pro-people when they are in the street without institution to fight for the people, or if the institution is created so that they can check the executive and fight for the people? How is that not pro-people?
Dr. Ojwang, are you suggesting that the only way you can fight for people is if you have an institution behind you?
Effectively, yes, you can, because some of these things were not sustainable. And City, I'm tired of people the closest they have come to problem of cost of living or human right is being served wrong brand of wine. They maybe asked for red wine, they were given white wine. That is the closest they have come to this problem. We are talking of people in Kibera who could not go to school because people were picketing. People in Madari, people in Nyalenda, children who saw all the brutality and the tear gas and could not even go to school. This report is for peace. Then here come the middle class, whose only relation to this issue is because they were served wrong brand of wine. All of a sudden talking as if they have walked those people's shoes. It breaks my heart.
Your heart is fragile, bro.
You better have a fragile heart too. Because,
Dr. Let's talk about the cost of living. The measures that have been proposed to address the cost of living.
Yes.
Why were the people that you've talked about, Nyalenda, Kibera, Huruma, Madare, why were they participating in the demonstrations? Cost of living, was it a legitimate concern?
If there is
Was it?
It was main. It was part of.
It was a
concern.
legitimate concern.
Yes.
Okay. How has this been addressed?
How has this been addressed?
Yeah.
Less traveling. How has this been addressed?
Explain. So if Kimani Ichung'wah does not travel as often as he was traveling, or any of
that money is cut from their budget,
and
then that money is not used for traveling. So all the state agencies and ministry traveling budget has been cut by, I think, 50%.
Yes.
So that is less money being used for traveling.
Okay.
Zero-sum budget.
Now connect that to cost of living, cost of unga,
yes. So if
or cost of nyanya, or cost of fish.
Yeah. So if there is less travel, there is more money, there is less borrowing. Yeah, there's less borrowing. There's more money in the coffer that can do good things, including subsidizing fertilizers and production. So I don't see that there's very clear nexus between the two. Now look at the zero-sum budget.
Okay.
Mrs. Nyakango came and said, generally people just come with budget, but not every spending is justified.
Yeah.
So they said we are going to have zero-sum budget where you don't begin from this is what I had last year. You begin from building block. I have 3 employees. This is how much they make. Okay, put it down here. Isn't that going to cut corruption and opportunity to exaggerate the budget? Remember the idea that has been well articulated that corruption is budgeted for, has been taken care of by the zero-sum budget. Plus any other measure, including...
So how does that, I still want to get how that brings down the cost of basic goods and commodities.
I mean, I
directly, you know, not the sharpest tool in the box.
So the if there is less corruption in budgeting, if our issue and part of our cost of living is governance issue. It's very expensive the way we are governed. It is very expensive the type of salary, the amount of salary that is going to fund this thing. The government operate in very expensive way. That is generally part of cost of living. So if this is now checked, isn't there more money? And more money means more good things for Kenyans.
Like what?
Like what?
When you say there is more money, where is this more money coming from? Look, if our budget for this year, this one that we are now running in, if it was not 3.6 trillion shillings, it was 3.3 trillion shillings, would there be more money?
Yes, because we have to meet that budget.
But would there be more money?
There will be more money for other important things. Basic things does not have to have
Dr.
basic.
Ojwang, basically, how? If you say our budget this year is 3.6 trillion shillings, in the next year, from July next year, we are going to have a zero-sum budget.
Yes.
We are going to cut this travel.
Yeah.
So if you cut this travel by 50%, our O&M is on, that's about 300 billion shillings. So let's bring it out to 150 billion shillings. Okay? So our zero-sum budget will be, we are not starting from 3.6 going upwards. We shall look back
you are
into what is
building
basic,
for every,
right?
yes, every coin.
So let's bring it down to 3.6 trillion shillings. From 3.6 to 3.3 trillion shillings. Show me where there is more money. Where is there more money? Because you've just budgeted for less.
Okay, it might be hard to deal with your hypothesis because there is 2 errors in it.
Okay.
One, you are bringing it as if it is factual. That that it will be the amount. Number 2, so it's an hypothesis of future.
It's completely
and I don't want to follow you to the roots because
what is not hypothetical is this year's budget. It is 3.6 trillion.
There are some of the things that take effect immediately.
This traveling.
Zero sum.
That reduces by 50%.
Yes,
and per diems that reduced by 30%.
By 30%.
Okay, so what we're trying to do is look for the link between this money that will be saved. So it's based on a principle, even if it is not 100,000 shillings. Just use that as an idea. That 100,000 shillings, give or take, across 20 people that come from state corporations who would ordinarily travel. And you take 30% from this 100,000 shillings times 20 people, that is 600,000 shillings. Is it not that you have saved?
That you have saved, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The link between that 600,000 shillings and where and what it will be applied to, that then means that the person who goes to their duka to buy maize meal will have an easier time in purchasing. That's the link we're trying to get. Because we are saying that these measures that are being suggested have a direct impact on the cost of living. It is that link that we're looking for to see how it will be realized.
Yeah, maybe that will, and you have broken it down very well. I took it for granted that it will be obvious that if government saves money, if government tighten their belt, then obviously there is more money here to do good things. Those good things are things that government supply that we cannot supply.
But it doesn't
ourselves.
make it cheaper. Let's put it in context in maybe an easier thing to understand. If in a home there is one person working and all of the responsibilities are on the shoulder of this one salary, right? Now, we've seen that they used to go on holiday. They don't go on holiday anymore. So the 20,000 shillings you would use for holiday, we bring it here, right? We've gone to a cheaper school. We save some money. Does that now mean that the price of what I will go and buy in the supermarket is cheaper? It doesn't. It means there is more money available, but it doesn't mean that the cost of purchase or the cost of survival has come down.
You know, you are looking at it at micro level.
Which we must.
I'm looking at it at macro level. The government cannot say how to address cost of living now means people should eat more vegetable and ugali because it's cheap. That is not what the government does. And the underlying presumption in your argument is that you argue as if you don't appreciate that we are in a capitalistic society where the force of the market takes their natural course. That one is already parked there as a principle. So we are not in a communist where the government is going to say from today, the price of rice is going to be this much, the price of vegetable. They do things in terms of environment, in terms of supporting the economy, things that an individual cannot do. Then the rest follows. Okay. So I think that
so it's meant to be a catalyst.
Then I think that is the source of disappointment, because if you thought the report was going to come and say from today henceforth 3 nyanyas is 10 bob.
No.
That would have been illegal.
Absolutely. Come on.
Let's take a break. It's 24 minutes. From tomorrow to today, how much it is 3 nyanyas? It's gone up by 300%.
He's saying it's 10 bob gone down, but here it's gone 3 times. It's tripled.
It will have been easier to meet Kioni.
Dr. Ojwang. So, Dr. Ojwang,
yes.
You told us there are measures that will address the cost of living in the medium to the long term. Other measures that have been proposed in this report are to address our politics, including, for example, the creation of the office of Leader of Official Opposition. Prime Minister's office. What is it for?
It's meant to bring political hygiene. And the political hygiene means that we should have clear institutions, that the leader of opposition should be able to even have shadow cabinet to check the government, so that the two sides can now work for the people. And you'll rather do that in parliament and in an institution than doing it in the street. And so I think it is institutionalizing our good manners, let the opposition check the executive. Let us talk of inclusivity, because you know very well that we live in a country that is multi-ethnic. So let us have these institutions so that we can represent each other better.
So how does, for example, we'll come to the Prime Minister, because that was my initial question, but now that you've gone into leader of opposition, how does that function? The leader of opposition will be elected by the minority coalition in parliament, and then they'll become the leader of opposition. Will they be a member of parliament? How will that help? How does that help anything? How does that help? How is that different from having a minority leader in the National Assembly?
It's the stature and the gravitas of the office. Yes, they will not be members of parliament because that required a referendum. But this is going to be a quick fix. This leader of opposition, once institutionalized, then they should be able to even come to parliament and talk about alternative budget. They should be able to come to parliament and address the members of parliament and Kenyans through parliament. So institutionalization rather than informal. You know, a lot of bad things happen when things are left informal, like handshake was informal. But when you have institutions, then there's less chance of personalization of things. There's less chance of informality. So right now, everyone knows their role. They are also facilitated to do their role so that they can do it effectively. And I think that if you look at our constitution, it's saying Kenya is a multi-party state. And that should be depicted from how we organize our politics. So if we
have an office of opposition leader
and
with two deputies, right?
Yeah.
How does that help our politics? Again, are you saying that because you have that office, you are not going to have man-to-man on the streets?
It's an office. And so with that office, then, they have a forum. And they have researchers. You see, if you are opposition and you're not facilitated to even do your research, so if government come and say, I've built a big hospital in Garissa, you're not able to go to Garissa to verify that is it built, is it worth it, then you'll be in Nairobi, you'll be in Kibera, you'll be in Kamukunji saying bure.
Making wild allegations.
Yes, without facts. But now you can send your team of researchers because you are in an institution.
Yeah.
They can go there and verify, is this thing on the ground? Is it worth it? So when you are now critiquing, not criticism, but critiquing, then now you have data, now you have details, and in the two, when people work better when they know they are being checked, and people work better when they know they are being there's somebody who is watching and can get more information. So people have the right to information, and that right to information should be able to come from the government and from the opposition, and then people can make their decision. How else? So just going to the street without data, without information, and shooting from the hip is one way of doing it. But I think a better way of doing it is to institutionalize this institution so that they can help Kenya with governance.
Dr. Your principal in Kenya Kwanza, the president, was completely against BBI, and he had reduced it into this is creating offices for cronies. How would you respond today if people said the same thing? This is creating offices just for individuals in high political offices.
Did BBI have leader of opposition? I don't think so. So that is already showing you the different trajectory. BBI did not have leader of opposition. BBI was an executive order. This is a parliamentary process. You saw it passed in National Assembly. So it is following the rule of law.
It is creating offices.
This
is the bottom line. You're creating an office for Prime Minister,
yes,
for two deputies. leader of opposition, 2 deputies, a prime minister. Who's a prime minister anyway?
But did BBI have leader of opposition? That's the
Yes.
question I've asked. Was it there?
It's in they were in parliament.
BBI
Yes,
was creating leader of opposition.
leader of minority.
Leader of minority is different from leader of opposition because unfortunately, we assume that so here is former Prime Minister Raila, who got almost half of the country vote. He's not in parliament, right? When he speaks, the authority and the gravitas of what he says will be much different from what Opiyo Wandayi, for example, Mheshimiwa, will say. So he must be able to lead his troops and govern so that we have institutionalized politics. Otherwise, what did we have instead? We have a situation where people do not speak through institutions, and we have very negative politics. You saw what picketing does, because when people cannot talk, when people cannot be heard, sometimes they are forced to come to extrajudicial means. You know how much loss that Maandamano brought to the country.
So now you've avoided it long enough. Now let's come into it. The Prime Minister's office.
The Prime Minister office Chief Cabinet, right, by whatever name, is already there. There is somebody in the office. But we must institutionalize this. Think of things not in terms of now, but in terms of posterity. Is it a bad thing if we are saying, remember this 2010 constitution ideally came to take powers from the president. That's why it created counties. That's why it created a deputy that the president cannot fire. Unlike before the vice president. That is why it removed ministers from being in parliament. Now it has also taken some power from the president by dividing it to prime minister. We started with a very a monster of presidency. And the 2010 constitution have tried to tinker with that and create other centers of power so that the presidency do not become larger than life, so that we fight less. Isn't this one of the ways that it has devolved or removed power from the president?
How? The president shall appoint the person who will be prime minister based on nothing other than the president's wish. Parliament shall approve the nomination. How is that taking power away from the president? Is this person going to be head of government? How is this helping our politics? City, are you seeing it? Because I'm not.
Our lived experience with the devolution, I was told that the power of the president was going to be reduced. I haven't seen it reducing, not even by one iota. The only thing that I have seen, if this is what you refer to as a reduction of power, is a situation where the president can be told to jump off and be told to get lost, that sort of thing. But that isn't reducing power. That is giving the Mwananchi more power to actually say and do what they'd like to do. And remember, presidents in African countries have a tendency of forgetting that they're actually elected. They actually think that it's divine intervention that gives them those jobs. And those who don't will try and figure out how they can stay on their jobs for as long as they possibly can. Now, our constitution did not take away power from the president. If you understand it the way as a layman, any constitution that gives power to the people has given the president more powers than even had before. Because if you are elected, then it means that power has been delegated to you.
By the people.
Yes. So this reduction of power story, I don't get it.
You're saying like it's a bad thing. Court, how many times have we seen court reverse our presidents? Isn't that a way of devolving powers from the president?
It's not devolving. That, my friend, is the perfect way in which the president is assisted. This godlike complex that African presidents like assuming doesn't help anybody. Okay? That's why it leads to coups and counter coups.
Yeah. But isn't that an innovation of the constitution that we have seen a situation where a president will say one thing? So I'm telling you that, yes, it might not have been perfect, but it has dented at least from what we had.
Doctor, you and I are not in disagreement.
Okay.
We're not in disagreement. Yes.
So the prime minister role here come to be another way of decentralizing power of the president.
The good doctor here went to school and he studied in English. Look.
Is the Prime Minister going to be head of government? Usually we see Prime Ministers are head of government. Is he going to be head of government? Is he going to be above the Deputy President?
No, I think the amendment is saying that he will be doing assignment given
by the President
and the Deputy President. The one that probably Azimio wanted could have required a referendum. Now, back to the bipartisan, that was.
So, what's the point of creating this office and entrenching it in the Constitution if it's a cabinet office like any other of the 23 cabinet offices?
No, if you look at the function of the Prime Minister, there are some functions. Is everyone, even a president, is the member of a cabinet, but he's first among equal. So no. It's not so much about.
He's not first among.
He's the appointing authority.
Yes, he's not first among equal.
He can fire the others. This Prime Minister, how different is he from the Minister for Health?
But remember, it has to go through Parliament. So
all of them do.
It is an extra layer. And to me, the innovation here, guys, is that we now have a national leadership that can represent our various regions and people.
So we've created offices for political figures.
For people.
Yes. For political figures.
No, you know.
We have people in mind. We have Raila in mind for this
no,
one.
Not Raila.
In mind
you're dividing the lines so sharply here. That somebody will think that there is a politician. They have different mothers. They have different parents. They have different. These are also Kenyans. And the position is not for individual.
Actually,
and that has been the problem.
Actually, no. This is our politics. This is Kenya. We have people in mind when we set our positions. It's not complicated, and there's nothing wrong with it, because politicians have figured out, and the voting public, which is us, have also figured out that we like this idea of our own representing us somewhere with a nice title like Prime Minister, or whatever it is, Deputy Prime Minister. People like those things. To understand it, you only need to look at the period after the problems we had in 2007, 2008. We had so many deputies and primes and presidents and what have you. People seemed happy. It's how we think. The BBI understood this very well. That's why they went about creating all these things. Now, why a referendum would be necessary is that the referendum, now people could tell you clearly we don't want it. That is your creation. But so long as we don't have a referendum, we can anecdotally say that that is how people prefer to have the leadership. People want to feel that they are also part of this cake-eating exercise. And the only way they feel that way is when one of their own has a title.
Do you think the concerns having been brought about by the Azimio side are genuine? Do you believe that their concerns have some weight that they've brought? There are certain things that have come out after the report whereby some principals say, well, they're not going to be party to this. They're not going to sign it for 1, 2, 3. Do you think those concerns are valid?
There are concerns. You see, my worry is not whether people even reject the report. Is that there is a report that is bipartisan. That those two sides and Kenyans that were not seeing eye to eye held each other's hand and said, let us put this country first, and came with a report and sacrificed both sides. In fact, died a little. Now, if you look at I don't know which is Azimio side, because it is very hard to have opposition within opposition. Yeah, and that is what appears to be, because the Azimio was represented. The leader of delegation signed the report. The leader of delegation has not trashed the report. So if a member within Azimio or a member really, because it's not so much the leadership of Azimio, might not be happy, the right to picket in Article 37 was not torn from the books. They can go and demonstrate. It is an individual right. It's not a group right. But to bootstrap and think that that people should just move by your whims, look at that Mandamano. Who are in the streets? It was people from my region who are in the streets. Then somebody somewhere who have not seen their relatives hurt, have not seen their relatives demonstrate, come out and say, I reject this. No, that right is there in Article 37. They can hit the road and demonstrate as individuals. Yeah, because I mean, we are being hypocritical. When Mandamano was called, nobody came from their neighborhoods. Nobody came from their quarters. All of a sudden, they are very clever about, yet they have not bear the brunt of what demonstration did to the people in Kibera, to the people in Mashimoni, to the people in Madare. To them, it's a lofty idea. It's an ideology. It is like ping pong. You know, they don't. It's not total commitment. For some of the region we come from, it's a total commitment, because unless this thing was addressed, it was becoming and remaining to be a regional problem. People are called to the street. They demonstrate. Some things happen. Some people take advantage. People die. People get hurt.
Yes.
And then when now the two sides have buried their hatchet, have said, let us move forward, then you find somebody from ideological perspective, not from total commitment. You know, the story where we had... there was a town where there was an advertisement on the shop saying eggs and meat required, please donate. Then the chicken is telling the cow, why don't we get in here and donate these things to these people? The cow tell the chicken, you know, you'll get in and donate your egg and leave. To me, I'm the meat they want. It's total sacrifice. So we also need to call some of this bluff that for others it's academic.
Dr. Ojwang, thank you for joining us today. We'll invite you again, of course, as this report is then chewed and understood by the people. Dr. Duncan Ojwang was a member of the Kenya Kwanza Dialogue Committee's technical team. He's been our guest. The Honorable Jeremiah Kioni, who's the head and legal head of the technical team of Azimio, was also to join us. He wasn't able to come in, but the conversations continue.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.